Good morning, students. Today I'm going to discuss about the topic insulin signaling pathway. So, as the name suggests, that there is something to do with the signal process of the hormone insulin. As previously in the last classes, we have discussed about the basic signal transduction process and G protein coupled receptor way of signal transduction. So today, in continuation, we will be dealing with something regarding insulin signaling. Now, what is the objective? At the end of the class, the student should be able to discuss what is insulin, how it is synthesized, how it is secreted, how it acts, that is the mechanism of its signal transduction, and what is its effect, final effect. Now, coming on to what is insulin. It is a polypeptide hormone produced by the beta cells of pancreas. As you all know, pancreas has got alpha cells, beta cells, delta cells, right? So, beta cells are the cells which secretes insulin. It has profound influence on metabolism of carbohydrate, fats and proteins, this insulin. It is also considered to be an anabolic hormone because it results in the synthesis of various molecules in our body. One such is glycogen. It was first hormone to be isolated, purified and synthesized. It was the first hormone to be sequenced and first hormone to be produced by recombinant DNA technology. Now, coming on to the structure, human insulin contains 51 amino acids, and these 51 amino acids are arranged in two polypeptide chains, chain A and chain B. Chain A contains 21 amino acids, chain B contains 30 amino acids. These two chains are linked by interchain, that is in between the chains, and intrachain, that is within the chain, disulfide bonds. Now, the interchain disulfide bonds are present between 7th amino acid of chain A and 7th amino acid of chain B, and also between 20th amino acid of chain A and 19th amino acid of chain B. The intrachain, that is within the chain disulfide linkage, can be seen in the A chain between 6th amino acid and 11th amino acid. So this is the structure. Here you can see this particular disulfide linkage is interchain between chain A and chain B, and this one is the intrachain. So this disulfide linkage gives the ultimate configuration of the insulin molecule. Now let us see how insulin is synthesized. Here synthesis I have written, so just correct it. It will be synthesized, right? So insulin gene is basically present in the short arm of chromosome 11 of the beta cells of pancreas. Now the insulin mRNA, which is transcribed from the insulin gene, is then translated as a single chain precursor protein called preproinsulin. This preproinsulin has got hydrophobic 23 amino acid leader sequence. Now, what is this leader sequence? This leader sequence helps this preproinsulin, guides this preproinsulin to enter into the endoplasmic reticulum. Now, after entering into the endoplasmic reticulum, these leader sequences are cleaved so that proinsulin with 86 amino acid is formed. So, from preproinsulin, proinsulin is formed. Now this proinsulin has got amino acid configuration in such a way that it allows the intrachain and interchain formation of disulfide bonds, right? Its getup is just like in the amino from the if we start from amino terminus, you will find that this amino terminus is the B chain, followed by the C chain. This is the connecting peptide, and then we have got the carboxy A chain, right? So as I have said, this B chain consists of 30 amino acid, right? This A chain consists of 21 amino acid. So this is my proinsulin, right? And the presence of intrachain and interchain disulfide bonds. This proinsulin undergoes a series of site-specific cleavage, right? And that results in the formation of equimolar amount of mature insulin and C-peptide. C-peptide was what? It was the connecting peptide. So the site cleavage results in the cleavage of the entire proinsulin polypeptide chain into three fragments. One fragment is the A chain, another fragment is the B chain, and the third fragment is the connecting peptide. This A fragment and the B fragment, they are linked by disulfide linkages. That is what was produced in the proinsulin molecule. Now, this C-peptide, which is generated from the proinsulin molecule, has got no biological activity. However, its estimation in plasma serves as the useful index for endogenous production of insulin. So, insulin can also be given exogenously in those patients who are suffering from diabetes mellitus. So, if you have to distinguish between whether the insulin present is exogenous or endogenous, we can simply check the level of C-peptide. If it is endogenous, then we are going to find equimolar concentration of C-peptide as well as that of insulin. But for exogenous, we have nothing to do with the C-peptide. Now in beta cells, once this proinsulin is cleaved and we obtain the mature insulin molecule, it is stored in the granules inside the B cells in combination with zinc. So the part for insulin synthesis is over. Now let us see how this insulin is secreted. Glucose is the key regulator of insulin secretion by the pancreatic beta cells. Although amino acid, ketones, various nutrients, gastrointestinal peptides, and neurotransmitters also influence insulin secretion. Glucose stimulation of insulin secretion begins with its transport into the beta cell by a facilitative glucose transporter GLUT2 after a meal. So, after a carbohydrate-rich diet, when the blood sugar level increases, the excess of the blood sugar, it gets entry into the beta cell through this GLUT2 transporter. It takes glucose inside the beta cell and then it is converted to glucose 6-phosphate and it undergoes further glycolysis and gives us the ATP. This ATP inhibits the ATP sensitive potassium channel. As a result, the potassiums are not able to move out. So the repolarization process doesn't occur and the beta cell, they remain in the state of depolarization. As a result, the voltage gated calcium channel, they open up and the calcium influx occurs inside the B cell. Once the calcium is inside the B cell, it results in the granules containing the insulin molecule to fuse into the membrane of the beta cell and they are ultimately secreted out. This is what I have discussed in the previous slide. The same thing it is written over here. So let us keep this slide. Now, once insulin is secreted with the stimulus that we have seen is the increase in the glucose concentration in the blood. Now, we have to see how this insulin, they further do their function. That is, they transduce the signal transduction process. So, For any hormone, the basic process for signal transduction is, first of all, the hormone has to be synthesized with in relation to any stimulus, right? That stimulus can be anything, uh, right from your, say, change in temperature in and around cells, or change in oxygen saturation or pH in and around cells, or change in the nutrients level, as in the case for insulin, the glucose concentration changes. So this gives a stimulus for the secretion of the hormone insulin, right? So in response to hyperglycemia, the insulin is secreted. This insulin, once secreted, is then uh, ready to transduce the signal. So how they do? First of all, they have to come and they have to bind with their corresponding receptors. This is the insulin receptor. We will discuss a bit more in detail about insulin receptor in the next slide. Now, once they bind with the insulin receptor, these insulin receptors have got inbuilt intrinsic tyrosine kinase activity. So this tyrosine kinase activity is activated and it starts phosphorylating the downstream molecule like insulin receptor substrates. Right. Once insulin receptor substrate molecule is phosphorylated, it further phosphorylates the downstream further molecule like phosphatidyl inositol 3 kinase, PI3 kinase, or this GRB-MSOS proteins. So this phosphorylation of the downstream molecules, they will further activate the proteins still downwards by phosphorylating, like this PKBs, this is protein kinase B, the SGK, serum glucocorticoid kinase, and ultimately it will result in the biological effect. What are the biological effect that insulin does? It is, first is the protein translocation. It translocates the receptors like GLUT2, GLUT4 receptors, insulin receptors, they translocate. Secondly, what it does is that it increases the enzyme activity, right? uh, we can say the enzyme activity which insulin increases is by mechanism of dephosphorylation, right? So in a way it activates these protein phosphatases, right? So once it activates protein phosphatases, the enzymes like your pyruvate dehydrogenase complex, which is activated in dephosphostate, gets activated, right? Also, it induces the formation of few enzymes, that is, it increases the gene transcription. Also, it helps in cell growth. So these are the few biological effects of insulin. So let us simplify it further and go into a bit detail about this GRB2 MSOS, or which is known as your mitogen activated protein kinase pathway, and the PI3 kinase pathway, and see what it mainly does. Now coming to this MAP kinase cascade pathway. So here you can see, as I have mentioned, insulin binds with the insulin receptor. Insulin receptor has got two alpha subunits and two beta subunits. Two alpha identical subunits are present in the extracellular surface, and two identical beta subunits, they are transmembrane and their carboxy terminus is present intracellularly. So once insulin binds with the insulin binding domain of the insulin receptor, the uh, beta subunit, which has got the intrinsic tyrosine kinase activity, protein kinase activity, gets activated. So as a result, what it does is that one of the beta subunit, it is going to phosphorylate the other beta subunit in the three critical residues which are present in the carboxy terminal. Similarly, the other beta subunit also will do the same thing. As a result, the tyrosine kinase activity will be enhanced. So this tyrosine kinase activity of the insulin receptor will further phosphorylate the insulin receptor substrate or IRS1 molecule. This phosphorylated IRS1 molecule becomes the docking site for the GRB2 molecule. That is, GRB is nothing but growth receptor binding protein. So this GRB2 will dock or attach with insulin receptor substrate by its SH2 domain. SH2 means SRC homology, means the domain has got the amino acid sequence homology with SRC, tyrosine kinase SRC. This GRB2 has got the other SH3 domain where the SOS protein it attaches. Once this SOS attaches, what it is going to do is that it is going to exchange GDP with GTP in the monomeric G protein, which is the RAS. So RAS bound with GTP gets activated, and once it's activated, it is going to phosphorylate the RAF1. RAF1 is a protein kinase. The activated RAF1 then again phosphorylates the MEK, which is another kinase, and activates it. This particular MEK, phosphorylated MEK, will further activate ERK by phosphorylating it. This is another kinase, right? So you see how the sequence of activation proceeds downwards by the action of phosphorylation. This phosphorylated ERK moves inside the nucleus and it phosphorylates the transcription factor ELK1. Once the transcription factors ELK1 is activated, it moves into the DNA binding site, right, and results in the transcription of various genes. So this is how the MAP kinase pathway, the cascade pathway, occurs. Here, one thing I should mention is that this RAF1, MEK, and ERK are all kinases. So ERK is called mitogen activated protein kinase. The MEK is called mitogen activated protein kinase. And RAF is called mitogen activated protein kinase. Triple K. So this what by saying that what I want to mean is that these are all kinases which are activated one after another. Now coming on to the phosphoinositide 3 kinase cascade pathway. As I've said, the IRS substrate that gets phosphorylated, and this phosphorylated IRS molecule, insulin receptor substrate molecule, as we have seen, the GRB molecule used to dock in the phosphotyrosine residue of IRS1. Here in the similar manner, what happens is that the PI3 kinase molecule, this is phosphatidyl inositide 3 kinase molecule, it docks into the IRS molecule by its SH2 domain. Once it docks, it becomes activated and it results in the conversion of phosphatidyl inositol 4,5 bisphosphate, that is PIP2, to PIP3, phosphatidyl inositol 3,4,5 triphosphate. Once this PIP2 is converted to PIP3, the PIP3 attaches to the protein kinase B. Attached protein kinase B is phosphorylated by one kinase, that is phosphoinositide dependent kinase PDK1. So this PKB, once phosphorylated, gets activated and it results in the phosphorylation of glycogen synthase kinase. Glycogen synthase kinase is inactive in the phosphorylated state. So here what it does is that it inactivates the glycogen synthase kinase enzyme. Now what is the function of glycogen synthase kinase? As you have seen right when in the glycogen metabolism chapter, glycogen synthase kinase is going to phosphorylate the enzyme glycogen synthase. You know, glycogen synthase also in its phosphorylated form is inactive. So here what insulin is doing is that it is phosphorylating the glycogen synthase kinase, making it inactive so that it is not able to phosphorylate the glycogen synthase. So glycogen synthase is in activated state. So once it is in the activated state, it results in the formation of glycogen from glucose. So insulin results in the formation of glucose. Also, this protein kinase B results in the expression of GLUT4 receptors in the membrane so that the glucose molecule can be taken in. So in a way, insulin does is it increases the utilization of glucose and thereby reduces the glucose level in the blood. Now, let us see what are the metabolic effects of insulin. As I have said you in the previous slide, the effect of insulin is it first of all results in the transporter of the membrane results in the transport of the membrane protein like your GLUT4 receptors, right? It also, so we can divide its effect, right, when in relation to carbohydrate metabolism, lipid metabolism, and protein metabolism. So it increases the glucose uptake by the tissue. How it increases? By the increased expression of GLUT4 receptor, right? It also increases the utilization by increasing the rate of glycolysis. So all the glycolytic enzymes, the regulatory enzymes will be activated by insulin. It also results in glycogen synthesis. So glycogen synthase will be activated. It will decrease gluconeogenesis, right? It is going to increase the fatty acid synthesis also. So that we can group it under the lipid metabolism. It increases fatty acid synthesis. It increases the formation of triacyl glycerol. It decreases lipolysis. The hormone sensitive lipase enzyme activity is decreased. It reduces ketogenesis and increases utilization of acetyl-CoA in the Krebs cycle. It enhances protein synthesis in protein metabolism, and all in all, what we can say is that a general rule is all the metabolic process which results in the reduction in the blood glucose level, either by its increased utilization or by the conversion of glucose into its storage form, is enhanced by insulin by basically dephosphorylating the K regulatory enzymes. In just reverse or just opposite manner, glucagon functions. What glucagon does is that it increases the blood glucose level by enhancing all those metabolic processes which results in increase in the glucose level in the blood, like glycogenolysis, gluconeogenesis, right? And it does its action, glucagon, by phosphorylating the key enzymes. This much for today. Hope you have understood. Thank you.